Hello, welcome back, everyone. Let's dive right in. This is going to be a great panel. I can already tell from our sidebar chatter before the recording started. Every author knows that navigating the journey of writing, publishing, and marketing your first business book comes with many uncertainties. Just getting a book from your mind into a purchasable format is a significant achievement you should be proud of. However, publishing is just the beginning. That's why we're back with another insightful author panel. Join us for a candid discussion about the challenges and triumphs of being a business author. These authors were part of one of my Kindle Cross-Promotion campaigns where we offered over 75 business books at 99 cents each. Our collaborative efforts helped most books reach the top 10 in their categories, with 30% achieving #1 bestseller status. Today's panel will explore the authentic experience of being a business author and provide valuable tips for easing the journey. We'll learn from one another and discover how a supportive author community can make all the difference. Before we dive into this panel, here is a quick word from our sponsor. Let's hear from our fantastic panelists and gain valuable insights into writing, publishing, and marketing your business book. We've got Annie P. Ruggles, author of The Coach Who Would Not Sell, a strategy novella and companion guide. She's an internationally recognized marketing and sales fixer for over-delivering entrepreneurs. Dr. Chris Johnson wrote The Leadership Pause, sharpen your attention, deepen your presence, and navigate the future. She designs and delivers learning programs and coaching to enhance focus, build resilience, boost energy, and improve listening skills. Nicole Fende wrote How to Be a Finance Rockstar, the small business owner's ticket to multi-platinum profits. She helps coaches, healers, and consultants grow profits and tame the numbers beast. Please join me in welcoming Annie, Chris, and Nicole. Annie, I'm going to kick this question off to you first. I want to know a little bit about who your ideal audience is for your book. Who'd you write your book for? Who's that reader that you had in mind?
I wrote the book for people like me who had never found a traditional sales book that spoke their language. And so it's for the small business owner who has either tried traditional selling methods or would never in a million years, if you put a gun to their head, pick up a sales book. If that's you, I wrote the sales book that you've been waiting for.
I love it. Hey, Chris, will you
Cool.
jump in and share your audience for your book?
Yes, I will. And similar to Annie, I wrote the book because I really needed to read it. We live in a crazy world. It's super chaotic and busy and over focused and frenzied. And I live that too. And so, really, this call, the leadership pause, is a call to action to actually take a moment to pause so that you can improve your leadership by improving your listening, your presence, and your focus. So, anybody need some more of that? The leadership pause.
Brilliant. Nicole, how about you?
Well, I love numbers. So that means a lot of people say to me things like, I'd rather face an invading barbarian horde than talk about my finances. Okay, I get it. However, we're in the business to make profit, right? So I work with especially creative coaches, holistic practitioners, and they feel like they're working harder for the same or less, and they just wish it could be fun and easy. I make it fun and easy. I've got mascots and everything.
I love this. Nicole, when you were first getting started with this book, when you were first getting started writing it, you're moving towards the publishing phase of it. What did you think would mean success for this book? What were the metrics you were tracking that would tell you, this book is a success? Back then, I know things probably have changed since then, but back then, what was important to you about being a successful author?
Well, I'm a numbers person. So I had tracked all my expenses and I wanted to make a profit from my book within the first 12 months, and I did.
Fantastic. Okay, that is a great metric, and I've yet to hear someone on this show talk about that. So that well, I'm gonna call that out specifically because I think it's an interesting point of view. Obviously, from a numbers kind of person. Annie, what about you? What were some of those early success metrics that were important to you?
I'm a service provider. I teach sales. So my book and I are in that same lane purposefully. And so for me, it was really about Not will people buy the book, but will people read the book? And if they read the book, will they use the book? And if they use the book, is it setting them up for success in the way that I expect it to? And yes, will that also tangentially turn into business for me? Right? Because if I do all those other things right, if I write a great book and it's actionable and they do it and it works, then they're probably going to hire me or tell someone about it. And so that for me was, can I get the word of mouth going? Am I getting the anecdotal evidence of use? And at the end of the day, am I getting some great gigs, some great clients? And I'm thrilled to say that I got both speaking gigs and students, clients from the book.
Brilliant. And I want to underscore that piece you said about writing a good book, because none of this matters. The book's not helpful and useful to that audience you mentioned at the beginning of the call. You said anecdotal evidence. Was there anything like numbers wise that you could track to know whether or not people were buying the book, reading the book, taking action with the book? Or is it really
So
people hitting reply to you? Or how did you figure that out?
before I did a big Amazon push, which I ultimately did, I wanted to get the book out in my ecosystem. And so the way that I knew that the book was out in the world getting shared was the number of download codes that I was seeing tied to individual people and to individual groups. And so I was seeing, where are my super performers coming in? Like, who are my super sharers? And then also, where would I see little pockets of stragglers? Where would I 3 months later see a weird uptick of a code again? Right? Because that would help me not only with the initial launch of the book, which was hard enough, but I didn't write this book for a one time launch. Right? I wrote this book to fuel my business, and I wrote this book because it was important to me. And so I'm still marketing it. I wrote it over a year ago. I'm still marketing it. So yeah,
Mhm,
the metrics that were tied for me were download codes,
mhm,
affiliate shares, and then ultimately when I wound up on booksellers, those bestseller ranks.
mhm. Fantastic. All right, Chris, I'm
Cool.
gonna come back to you. Tell us a
Sure.
little bit about those, beginning of the process. What was important to you? What were those metrics you were keeping track of?
Well, actually, initially, I kept track of pre-launch, like how engaged is my launch team in the process and what's the reach that they're willing to make on behalf of not just me, but certainly of the message of the book about pausing. So I kept track of that. I kept track of new email subscribers, not just LinkedIn connections, but actual subscribers. And that went up by 22%, which I thought was really great. And then follow up. And some of the anecdotes has been really delightful and heartwarming, where I've had at least a half a dozen people reach out, either LinkedIn or an email, and like, oh my God, this book has already changed my life. I'm sharing it with people. And then I can use their comments and share those around. So all of that has been really great. And today, my husband just let me know that it's 797 days as an Amazon bestseller. So I'm still very happy. Mhm.
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
what as you've evolved as an author, Chris, was there
Mhm.
something in particular that shifted about what you were tracking? Did you start paying attention to other things related to the book?
I started paying attention to in terms of outreach and like Annie had mentioned, like speaking opportunities, et cetera. So I haven't had as many of those as I would like to have still, but that's in the works right now. So it's all good. Mhm.
That's great. That's great. Annie, I'm gonna come back to you. Has anything changed about what you're keeping track of now?
Well, I got to be honest, and I'm going to talk about what's been really hard. And you and I have talked about this off mic, Robbie, which is I would love more reviews
Mhm,
on
Mhm.
Amazon. And it has been pulling teeth. People will write me emails saying that they love the book, praise the book. They say that they'll post stuff on Amazon. It doesn't show up. I don't know why. I don't think they're lying to me. I don't know if the algorithm hates me or what, but now the main metric that I like pray for every day is I'm like, please, 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 can I have a new Amazon review? May I please, please, please have a new Amazon review? Because the bestseller stuff happens sporadically. Love that. It's in print now, so people are getting their actual workbooks to write in. I love seeing that in addition to the KDP stuff.
mhm.
But the only metric, and I wish I could distract myself from it, but I just can't. The only metric that really matters to me right now is getting another Amazon review.
All
So
right,
if
we're going
you've
to
read
come
my
back.
book, come on.
We're going to come back to that in a second, but I want to, because, reviews is my happy space. I know it's not for you, but I will talk about reviews for the hour if you want me to. But Nicole, first, before we do that, what metrics are you now keeping an eye on that's different from what you first thought were important?
I don't want to sound like a one-track mind. However, at the end of the day, I'm in business to make money. Business without profit is just an expensive hobby. So I look at my book is over 10 years old, my first book. That's the one that was included here. And I'm looking at the fact it is still selling. It is still reaching people. The content, it's evergreen. I wrote it to be evergreen, but I didn't know. I don't have a magic ball. It is evergreen. I am redoing the cover. I was inspired by working with all these authors going, okay, so I've got a new cover coming out. But just that it continues to speak to people and it continues to sell.
hmm One of the nice side benefits, an unexpected maybe side benefit of the Kindle Cross-Promotion campaign that I've now run twice, and I've committed to running ongoing twice a year around Amazon Prime Day in July and around Black Friday, November, is that there are authors who have books that are more than 5 years old that are now being sort of reinvigorated. Not just the books getting visibility again, but the author's enthusiasm for the book is being reinvigorated, because it's kind of I did a thing back then, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, people still want to talk about this book. That's cool. And then they get really reanimated. So that's been useful. And then also we have folks like Annie who have a book that's, less than a year old. And this is giving a nice little boost out of the gate as people are coming. We have had people publish in late October, early November for the November Black Friday, and they do their own little push to get reviews before Thanksgiving, and then we send people to that page during the Thanksgiving weekend. So it could be very helpful for a new author. But I love the fact that the focus on reviews is also about getting reviews over time. And
Yeah.
I'm going to just call out that I see for Nicole, you just got a review in July of this year. You're again mentioning this book is not a new book. And I believe is one of the authors from the Kindle
Yes,
Cross-Promotion
yes.
wrote you a great review, and he knows, I'm seeing who this is. He knows a lot of people. So it also got you on the radar of someone who I think of as a really good connector. So never stop pushing, which is what Annie's saying also, like never stop asking for reviews. I'm going to go to Chris for the reviews question first, though, because in this particular group of three, Chris has done really well. So first I'll explain that there are ratings and there are reviews. So ratings are the number of times someone came to the Amazon sales page and marked a star rating of 1 through 5. You can have a rating without a written review. I'm not sure why Amazon allows that, but they do. And so Chris has 73 ratings and 62 written reviews. This is an exceptional number for two reasons. One, the ratio between ratings and reviews is pretty close, which is harder to do as you get higher up in written reviews, because it's easy to do a campaign of people clicking the 5 stars. It's harder to do a campaign where people actually write you a review. And anything over 50 is phenomenal. That means you really had a machine behind this, because getting even over 20 reviews takes a real effort. So Chris, tell us a little bit about why was this important to you, and how did you actually approach this to get these kinds of results?
Well, reviews, especially well-written ones, and we probably all had some that weren't great, right? I mean, there's always a few that don't like you, but getting reviews is social proof, and it indicates that what we are offering or having to say in our work is relevant to our particular audience. So I wanted to reach 100, and I'm with you, Annie. I'm working on the 100 number, right? But every time I have done one of Robbie's the cross promotions, or when I do a push myself and I offer something around a particular holiday, or like International Women's Month in March, I ask for reviews. And I have a form that I send people so that they can just get themselves ready. And then I give them the direct link that's actually kind of hidden on the page on Amazon. And I give them that direct link, like, hi, here you go. You did some prep work, just drop it in. And that seems to have made a big difference. So since the last cross promotion, I've gotten 11 new reviews since that time back in July. Thank you, Robbie. And
Yeah, no, I'm
everybody that offered a review.
seeing
Mhm.
your last written review was from July of 24, but you've got a bunch in June. It's great to
Mhm.
see that there's constant reviews coming in. Again,
Yeah.
ratings are easier than written
Mhm.
reviews. And I want to
Mhm.
call out something that Chris just said because it's something I do. So I'm a book launch strategist. I've given a
Mhm.
lot of thought about how to encourage people to follow through on their best intentions. So when they set the intention to write a review for us, I think they do it in good faith. But the
Mhm.
reality is it's not nearly as important to them as it is to us, the author, and
Yeah.
life is busy. And writing reviews is a little bit awkward. It's not a thing that we do every day. So if you
Mhm.
just send people to the blank page on Amazon, this is assuming that they can find that section. They're
Mhm.
staring at a blank box. And that's where you get these good book,
Mhm.
submit, like
Yeah.
and that's not a great, it's not a helpful review for the prospective reader either. So what I do, and it sounds like what Chris has adapted as well in an ongoing way, is I give people some prompts and
Mhm.
then I give them a Google form to submit their review, and then I turn around and send them back their review text with the explanation of exactly how to post. So there's a lot of hand holding
Mhm.
because I know that this is important to me, and I know that if they follow through on their intention, I will feel good and they will feel good. But if it
Mhm.
just lingers as a to-do item, it becomes they almost want to avoid the author at that point because they're like kind of embarrassed they haven't done it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So those are all little tips that I hope Annie and Nicole can use as well.
Mhm.
I'm going to go over. Yeah, let's all help Annie. She's got 10 ratings and 4 reviews, and her book is really good. And I think I actually owe you a review now that I'm looking at this. So I will get on that. And then I see we also have. I had this on here a second ago. Oh yeah, so 17 ratings and 16 reviews. Nicole, that's excellent. I mean, getting close to 20 or getting around 20, you can see how much effort it takes just to do that. I think of it as a differentiator, particularly with all the AI books that are flooding the market. But even
Oh.
before AI was a really big thing,
Mhm.
self-publishing's been a big thing for a while, and people are being told to write a book in a weekend. I'm sure it's possible. Is it a good book? I'm not sure about that because it takes a bit of effort to make it a good book. So
Mhm.
the reviews tell prospective readers, this is a valuable book. I learned something. And anyone who's thinking of hiring you to speak can look at that. So, Chris, I would say lean into how
Mhm.
many reviews your book has gotten and use some of those quotes as you're trying to
Mhm.
get speaking opportunities. I
Yeah.
think
Thank
that
you.
differentiator could really help you.
Mhm.
Nicole, did you have anything you wanted to add about the review process?
It just seeing you in action, Robbie, because we share a client, and I got to see you help that client get an amazing amount of reviews with her launch. It really lit a fire in me, I guess I will say. So I am working on it. It's I know it's not as sexy a topic, but come on, who doesn't want to be a rock star? So I definitely want to keep working at it.
Yeah. Yeah, and Annie, I feel like we might have to put Annie in some like we have to like it's like a immersion therapy, like we have to just get you immersed into this so to move people
Please,
past like yeah,
please chuck me into the pool, please. I
yeah.
have tried. And here's the thing, y'all. I'm a marketer and I teach sales. So, like, I'm flummoxed. And so I am
Mhm.
so excited to be on this panel, soaking up this
Mhm.
knowledge from you three brilliant brilliants, because I have not been able to crack this nut. I just haven't. And, like we're talking about speaking gigs, I get speaking gigs from the book all the time. I have 4 reviews. I have
Yeah,
one person that 2-starred me and didn't write a word, which
right.
Mhm.
tanked me because
Oh,
I have so few ratings. It tanked me down to like a 4.2 for a while. And I'm like, this is bizarre. So thank you all for sharing your knowledge with me. I'm having some imposter syndrome, but I'm working through it.
I love it. I think that it is interesting as a credibility factor when I get pitched people to be on my podcast. My old podcast was called On the Schmooze, and I interviewed entrepreneurs and podcast placement companies or PR agencies would pitch their authors to me. And
Mhm.
I only interviewed 14 or 15 guys a year because it was like one every 3 shows. So I was very particular about who I was inviting. But I would be like, oh, they wrote a book about networking. Well, that's a topic I want to really drill into on this show. But then I'd glance and they'd have, 7 ratings and 3 or 4 reviews. And I'm like, they wrote a book on networking? It's like, so similarly, Annie, you're like, I'm in marketing and sales. So here's the thing I can offer all of you. In my second book, Small List, Big Results, Launch a Successful Offer No Matter the Size of Your Email List, which you can find the bonus content at smalllistbigresults.com. I offer the process called Wake Up Your Network. And the free workbook is actually part of the bonus content for the book. I do a Wake Up Your Network mastermind a few times out of the year. Basically, you get 2 weeks to create a list of 75 to 150 plus people that are likely prospects and referral partners based on my process. And then you come to this 2-hour call to talk about what to do with it. That is the basic process that I work off of, Annie, for getting reviews for me and for my clients. So Nicole and I, like she said, we share a client. That's what she did. She built a list of about 400 people. She invited them to join her launch team. She got under 150 to opt in quickly. And from that, I think she had 131 at a certain point, but she got 65 written reviews from the 131, which was a really phenomenal rate. Usually it's about a third. But it was because she handpicked who to talk to, and then she had a series of messages to send them, and she knocked it out of the park. So anyone who wants to ever talk to me who's listening to this, including our panelists, I do relaunches. And as Chris said, you can talk up your book at various points throughout the year. She talked about how sometimes it's like it's women's history month, right? You pick the holiday or your birthday or your book's birthday or any random Tuesday, and that could be your relaunch day with a focus on getting reviews. But Annie, I hope you come back to the next Kindle Cross-Promotion, because if you're going to drop your book to 99 cents anyway, that is a fantastic time to then use a few weeks leading up to it to really build that list and make that direct ask and tell them their goal is to get that review up by US Thanksgiving, because you're about to drive a lot of traffic to the book sales page, and it'll just help future sales. So even if you handpicked, 30 people, you could try to just do it on a small scale and hope that each one of them actually follows through. So, all right, we're going to move off of reviews. I know I can do it all day. Hey, I have a question. What was challenging other than reviews, right? Because reviews is like the very end of this process. I still do not identify as a writer. I've written 3 books. I regularly write a column, like a newsletter, all this stuff. But writing is not really my happy space. So for some of us, that's the difficult part. And for other people, the marketing is the difficult part. And for some, just getting the book published was overwhelming. So I'm curious, I'm going to come back to Chris. What was the biggest challenge to get the content from your head to this beautiful book that we now have in front of us?
Yeah, I'm just pausing to say which was the biggest challenge. I would say that the challenge was my expectations about how quickly it would happen. And it had so much to do with, my whole internal operating system of expectations. Like, hey, this is up in here. It should be a dream to just download that stuff, write it out. Good. That was really the hardest part, was organizing it. So I had a great team all the way along, and great editing support and great launch support. And then we made it happen. So that was the hardest part for me.
Was recognizing that it's not instantaneous. It definitely takes time. Getting the ideas out of your head is a whole process, getting it organized into a book and then edited and all that. I mean, you had the team around you to hold you accountable and to help you moving forward. That's great. Nicole, over to you. What was the biggest challenge for you other than the review piece?
It was actually the editing process, because I had an amazing editor. I'm actually now in business with her, with Creatopia. However, I was already getting paid to write blog posts for people. I wrote this book back when blogging was huge. I was getting paid to write for people. So I thought, oh my God, I've got my manuscript written, I'm ready to go. And I sent it to Monette, and I got it back, and I just thought, oh God, I'm awful. I'm awful. It was, now I realize in retrospect, that's part of the process. At the time, I didn't expect all the, equivalent of red ink, which is normal. Totally normal. She told me to get rid of a whole chapter. And in the end, she was right, and she made my book so much better. However, that was I don't know if anyone else experienced that. That was hard for me.
That sounds very humbling given your
Yeah.
position as a paid blogger at a time when that was not something everyone was doing. I think that that was helpful for both of you. Those are both great things to point out for anyone listening. It helps them sort of maybe change their expectations a little bit. Annie, what would you add as a big challenge?
I invented a genre. Like, what is a strategy novella? It's the only one on the internet. I invented the term, right? So that had a lot of fun in it, but the also like when there is no playbook for something,
Yeah.
and I'm a strategist, I kept looking for like, how many words should this be? And it's like, well, you invented a genre. I'd never written fiction before. There's a fiction component in my book because it's a novella. I've never written fiction before. I've written 2 other business books, never written fiction before. The validation process was totally different. I'm like, I'm writing a weird book that's intentionally weird. Is it weird good or is it just weird, right? Like it's there was just nothing, there's still nothing to compare my book to, which is really, really lovely and unusual. But I didn't go out to trailblaze, and I didn't realize until I was out that I was like, "Oh, wow. I'm really just doing this.
Hmm.
Cool." You know? And so that I think it was that self-validation piece and the permission to experiment and play and create something unexpected to myself as well.
Not with the word novella, but your book idea makes me think of Who Moved My Cheese, other
Mhm.
books like that. And I worked with someone on the launch of their book that was also a fiction book that had that really
Mhm.
strong message content.
Yeah.
It was a business fiction book, and they're
Mhm.
rare. And so finding a community of authors who even understand that and can help you think it through, I mean, that's just different, right? Because everyone else is like, you got to put a lead
Yeah.
magnet. And you're like, yeah, yeah, but that's going to help me write the story that I'm
Mhm.
trying to tell and write it in a way that's going to resonate and not just land oddly. So yeah, I can totally see that. Blue oceans are great, except sometimes they're blue because no one knows what to fish for them.
Multiple authors told me not to write business fiction before I came out with this book. Multiple new, like a New York Times best-selling author who's still all cranky about his biz fiction said that is the worst idea you could do, Annie. And I said, thanks so much, and cried for like 2 days, and then said, have fun with all your bestsellers. And then I wrote my novella and changed the world. So
I love the energy you have behind all of this. Hey, speaking of which, Annie, what was your most effective marketing strategy that led to actual book sales?
I wanted the book to be a multi-sensory experience because I knew I would sell more if people actually read the book, right? And if people just bought the book and they just kept it on the Kindle, nothing would happen. So my book has a Spotify playlist. It has a podcast playlist. It has bingo cards that you can download with the book. I really wanted the resource section to be pleasurable and enjoyable, but not just as a distraction. The bingo cards lead people back to the action items in the book. The playlist is timed to go with the book. So if you're going to listen to it or if you're going to do bingo, it forces you to crack the binding, and that's what I really needed people to do, and that did turn out to work really, really well because when people buy the book and then they reach out to me, they say, I've never played bingo with a book before, or
Mhm.
I've never had a playlist for a book before, or I found the playlist and then I had to go buy the book. Okay.
So, Annie, it sounds like you get a lot of really great testimonials or feedback via email or social posts, etc. You just might need to go through, copy those, and
Mhm.
then give people really specific instructions. Reach out to me after this, and I will send you the email with it. Here are all the steps supposed to review. So it feels like you in your orbit are some really positive feedback that you could use.
Mhm.
And another way to use those reviews, by the way, just getting back on that topic because I can, is LinkedIn testimonials, LinkedIn recommendations. that could be another really useful way of using those. Nicole, did you have a particular way that you were able to, market that led to actual book sales? I know that book sales aren't the end all be all, but getting a bulk boost of sales or something like that, was there something memorable that you were able to do that really got a lot of attention on the book?
I had a big launch party when I first came out. I in-person launch party at a local historic theater, and but leading up to it, so Fluffy is the finance mascot. Fluffy the finance feline is a mascot in the book. So I had Fluffy drawn up as Elvis and by my illustrator, and where's Fluffy? Or there's a Fluffy sighting, like an Elvis sighting. And so Fluffy was spotted. I got different people to be part of my promotion. Fluffy, again, when blogs were really popular, and he would show up on different sites, right? Of people, and that helped raise the interest. And of course, then I had a big printed out picture of him that you could take, pick selfies with at the book launch. Here's Fluffy, we found him. So it was to drive home, this can be fun, right? This can be fun and entertaining, and yet we're getting things done on the finance end.
So much fun. Chris, what about you? What were your biggest marketing strategy?
Oh, I was so caught up in her story. I need to think a second. I think, what I remember is, so the book, I would love to make money, Nicole, like you have said, and you have that background and emphasis. But my main goal for the book is really as an offer to the world, but also as a marketing tool to share about the skills that I can bring to support leaders and teams. And so I have found that I give the book away as at speaking events, at different courses that I teach, and then I end up getting more comments. So I don't know if that's probably the best one, but that's what I've been doing of late.
Yeah, well, actually leads me to my next question, which I'll go back to you again, Chris. The clarity that you seem to have about how this book supports your business goals. Did you have that clarity when you're first writing the book, or is this something that's sort of evolved over time? Tell us a little bit about the connection between the book and the business strategy.
Yeah, when I initially worked with a hybrid publisher, and when I originally started with them, they were very focused on tell us what your goals are for this book. And so, I had an idea in my head and I thought it would just be kind of great to roll it out. And they were pretty insistent on, no, let's make sure that you're really clear on, as you write this is the trajectory you would like to follow, in as much as one can do that on the front side. And that really, really helped to have somebody to hold my feet to the fire of, what do you really want out of this? And has it changed? I think, yeah, it has changed. I'm much more aware of, I've done some other courses in between. And one of the things I've learned around media, and Robbie, I'm sure you know a lot about this. What I've learned is that if you're not a celebrity, and I am not, that your book, to Nicole's point, can be really long-term and evergreen, and we can keep building on that. So my strategy is, how else is the question, really? It's not a strategy. How else can I continue to place and offer and speak to the content in this book? Because there's a lot of content in the book. I probably could have written 2 instead of just 1, but how to do that. And that's really the top of mind question, and why I'm really excited to be here today. So if you have any great advice, Robbie, please lay it on before we jump off here.
Well, I feel like you skirted past this piece that I want to emphasize, which is that you include the book when you're doing other things. Like,
Yes.
you might either the book might be sold or included in a package for speaking or consulting or coaching. So your fees already might just assume that these books will be included, so that you're not actually having to have a second conversation, because sometimes we have our speaking price and then oh, hey, do you want some books? And so that sometimes comes from a second budget, and that could be very helpful. Or you can just kind of go in and say, for this full fee, I include 50 books, and anything more than that, I'll offer a discount and bulk sales. So it does allow you to get the book into people's hands in a really smart and thoughtful way, because you don't make sales from individual sales are not the way we as business owners are going to make money. It's either a bulk of sales, but particularly getting the book to the right audience, the audience then comes to us. It sounds, that piece of advice that you were emphasized in the beginning about who was this book for and how is it going to be the trajectory, That's the piece I wish every author had someone stressing to them. I always say, I'm not a developmental coach, a developmental editor, and I'm not a writing coach. But if you meet with me before you write your book, I will help you save time to write the right book because I'm a strategist, right? So making sure you meet with the right kind of partners around that, that's really, really helpful. I'm going to come back to Annie. How does this, it sounds like you're getting a lot of speaking opportunities off the book. How much were you clear about the book supporting your business goals as you were writing it? And has something shifted about that as you've had the book out in the world?
I wrote it as a lead magnet specifically, and I wrote it very intentionally to solve what I call the problem before, right? So anytime there's always going to be objections, right? There's always going to be hesitations to working with someone. And so I wrote the book to help them solve their most critical problem as I understood it, which is the problem of sales avoidance, right? And so I wrote the book to help you conquer sales avoidance. And then at the end of the book, I asked the question, now that you've conquered sales avoidance, now what? And the now what is learn how to sell as yourself, right? I was very, very, very deliberate about the baton pass between my book and my work. And that has only strengthened in the year of the book because I've changed course hosts. I've changed how the course is delivered. So I've had to refunnel point A to point B, but point A and point B haven't changed. And I think the reason I've been able to do that was because I so cleanly said the prerequisite to working with me is conquering sales avoidance. So I need to write the handbook to kicking that to the curb. And so I think because I was so deliberate about that moment before, it has brought me a lot of success.
I love what you're saying, and I'm going to put it in my own language, as I wrote about in my second book, Small List, Big Results. So it's sort of this awareness journey that your prospect is on. And what you wrote was a book for what I call the little p problem. The little p problem is a problem they know they have and they're willing to admit. And that's easier to sell to because they're willing to admit it. They're Googling it, they're asking colleagues, they'll buy a book about it. And that means sales avoidance, right? Like that's the problem that they're having. Now, you want to make them like amazing at sales, which is the bigger problem that they have to address. But they can't get to this bigger problem until they get past this little p problem that they're aware of. And so the book brought them along that journey to the point where they're now like, oh, well, now what? Now I feel like I've got to do more with this. Oh, well, look at that, Annie. Annie's been a great guide. She's been supportive. She's got some solutions. So then the question comes down to urgency. How urgent is it that they solve for this new problem they suddenly realize they have? You can't sell that problem to them in the beginning when they're not aware of the bigger problem because they're really like, you're not talking to me, and you're not. And so that's the disconnect with a lot of marketing and sales professionals. When us as entrepreneurs go out and try to sell something, I call this expert syndrome because we look at a person and we're like, oh, I know what's wrong with you. Buy this $2,000 package. And they're like, what? I was looking for a $20 course. And that's this disconnect. So it feels like your book really nicely lined people up. And that's if folks are thinking about writing a book who are listening in, write a book that solves the little p problem and sets them up to address the bigger problem, which you then can help them solve. That's just a method. That's not the only method, but that's one nice way of thinking about writing a book. Nicole, I'm going to come over to you to ask you how clear you were about the connection between your book and your book's like ability to help you with your business strategy, business growth.
Oh, I absolutely wrote my book as a boost to get speaking gigs, to bring in clients. And a third thing, I was frustrated because I was already doing speaking and I would speak, and then people would say, I don't have enough money to hire you. And okay, fair, right? I mean, I'm not cheap, fair. So now when they say they can't hire me, I say, you can buy this book, which really covers all the basics, for $20. And if you can't afford $20, you should not be in business.
I also found when writing my first book, I had this talk that I delivered about, it's called Art of the Schmooze. It's about networking at conferences and events. And I had like 3 days of content. So if you gave me 2 solid hours, I would just pack it full of ideas. But my worst presentation was when I was planned for 45 minutes, but by the time I was able to do it, I had about 30 minutes. and I just talked really fast, like exception. I'm already a fast talker. So I just went on like warp speed. Not a great moment, but it was because the book didn't yet exist. So later I realized I could talk for 5 minutes on my topic and just give like the top 3 things I want you to think about, and the book addresses those and more. Like that, having the book to refer to as an inexpensive follow-up to Nicole's point. Nicole, come back to you.
Yeah, what I talk about it now using that exact methodology is what are the top 3 pricing mistakes people make and how to avoid them. Because that is a really makes sense. People get into it, they come to it, and it's the little P. It is.
I have to say, Nicole and Annie are fast friends. I knew this before they
Yeah.
came on the air. I can't wait to see what comes from the collaboration between the two of you. Nicole, do you have specific things like lead magnets in like opt-in pages and opt-in bonus content in that book? I mean, this is going back a decade ago. Was that part of the marketing plan back then?
Yeah, actually, I got Pitney Bowes to be a sponsor because back when I wrote this, I told you I had to make money. Wrote this, QR codes were new. So they did QR codes and they provided them for me. They actually came out and even videoed my launch. And so with the thing, you can look at the QR codes, which everyone knows now, and it'll take you to little videos. And I have websites listed as well too. But the QR codes were kind of my thing.
That was a big deal back then. Now, were any of that leading to a page where you collected email addresses to add them to your business email list, or was it more about content that sort of added value to the book experience?
It both added value as well as encouraged them. I have a Rock Your Profits online course, and you can work consulting with me and things like that. So it did both.
That's fantastic. Annie, come back into you. How did you direct like a reader is like, oh, this has been amazing and life changing? Like, is it obvious to that reader how to stay connected with you and what the next step is? Is there something in the book like a lead magnet or bonus content that directs them back to you really quickly?
You betcha. Oh, you betcha. 2 of the things I already mentioned, like the playlist and everything, because I didn't know, are they going to find the playlist first? Are they going to find bingo first? Is someone going to send this to them? Are they going to get it through me? Are they going to get it through Amazon? And so I was like, let's just create a soup. And so everything points at everything. The playlist points at the book points at the playlist. Bingo points at the book points at bingo, which points at my email list, which points at my website. You can download a copy of my book on my website, but you got to give me your email, and then you got a follow-up sequence. And if you get it from Amazon and then you go to the thing, you get a different follow-up sequence. I'm telling you, y'all, it is such a soup, but it's effective because again, it gets people to read the dang thing.
Question: does your follow-up sequence include a specific request with prompts for writing a review?
Yes, but obviously not a good one, Robbie.
All right, send me your version. I'll take a look. And maybe it's also a question of where it comes, because they have to actually have spent a little time with the book. If it comes too soon, it could also be maybe not as effective. All right. I'm going to ask Chris to tell us a little bit about how you attract people from the book to your business. Is there like a breadcrumb trail that's easy for them to find?
Yeah, I mean, there's an email follow-up sequence. There's that. I have a newsletter that goes out to a few thousand people. Yeah,
how do they get on that email list from the book? Is there an opt-in page?
There is not an opt-in page, although there should be. There's not an opt-in page. There is a way to connect with me online, and once you go on, you'll see my mug on the front page and how to opt in. And there's, of course, a whole book page on the website.
That's awesome. I want to mention that I've recently started doing book club discussions for my Content and Connection Club, which is this weekly mastermind that I host. It's $100 a month. We have co-working, all kinds of fun stuff. contentandconnectionclub.com. I bring it up not to do an ad for it, but to say that when I pick a book, I then have to go come up with questions. And it's been interesting to talk to authors. Hey, do you have a list of questions for a book club discussion? And it ranges from, never thought of that, to, yes, it's actually in the book. let
Mhm.
me send you a PDF of that section. So
Mhm.
I'm going to just sort of say out loud that the more, if we want people to discuss our books in small groups, we could also run a campaign to suggest that and then offer them a series of
Yep.
5 or 6 questions to kick off the conversation. Because I'm on the position of wanting to host those conversations.
Mhm.
Does anyone on this panel, as we wrap up here, have a particularly juicy success story because of the book blank happens? Give me a wave if you've got a particularly good story. All right, we're going to go over to Annie.
Because of the book, I got on the radar of someone that I had been trying to get on the radar of unsuccessfully for years, and they came to me. In that there's
Amazing.
a really incredible organization that I was trying to get after. I had advocates on the inside advocating for me, and it had fallen on deaf ears, never had gotten anywhere. And 2 days after the book came out, the executive director emailed me, said, "I found your book. I need you. Our organization needs you. Can you come in and speak to us?" And I said, "I've been trying to get in front of you for 2 years." So that happened 2 years to 2 days, all because of the book.
Amazing. So in a moment, I'm going to come back to Annie and ask her advice for someone who's writing a book to help them grow their business. But first, we're going to have a quick word from our sponsor. Annie, what advice would you give someone who's writing a book to help them grow their business?
Well, put more effort into getting reviews. No, but also what I what is a book? You get to define it for yourself. My project wound up 7,000 words. I would love to write a full-length book someday. It is on my bucket list. But I set out to do something that hadn't been done before, and if I tried to write a longer book, it wouldn't have worked. So I had to give myself permission not only to change things up, but okay, 7,000 words. It's not nothing. It's not a pamphlet. It has value. So what are your misconceptions of what a book is and that you think you're not capable of? Maybe it's time to change it up, try something new, and don't listen to your naysayer mentors. Just do it.
I love it. Chris, what about you? What advice would you give someone writing a book to help them grow a business?
Do it. Just sit down and do it and keep doing it and keep at it. I think the tenacity and making the practice of writing a practice, you can include the pause right there, just saying, you include the pause and then you practice and you write and you do it again and you do it again and you do it again. Because what you're writing, as Annie just said, is of value. It's your creation and the world needs it.
I love that. You also earlier were talking about having a good team around you because I think that helps with that tenacity and follow through and ending up with a really good product. But you do have to get to the point where you're ready for that team, and that's the author. The author has to get to that point. Nicole, what about you? What's the advice you'd share?
First, I'm going to co-sign everything my fellow panelists have said. Excellent. And I would add, yes, start with the end in mind and all those things. Think, not to be a broken record, however, this is still a business investment. And I see a lot of people who either try to do it on the cheap, which you're going to get a cheap product, or they spend a lot in the beginning and they don't leave anything for the marketing and promotion and all of that. Have a plan, do a budget, and then you can say, hey, look, I did turn a profit. There's lots of ways a book can make you money other than selling the actual physical book. Have a plan, go for it, and remember, it's an investment in your business.
This is brilliant. How can people find you, Nicole, and follow your work?
Well, you can find me at thenumberswhisperer.com. Um, and you can also find me at creatopia.studio.
Fantastic. Chris, what about you? Where can people find you and follow your work?
Yeah, you can follow me over on LinkedIn or you can check me out on the website, q4-consulting.com.
Fantastic. We're going to put all these links in the show notes. Annie, what about you?
AnniePRuggles.com. But more importantly, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Robbie will tell you I freaking love LinkedIn. So please get over there and DM me. Let's be buds. Annie P. Ruggles on LinkedIn.
We're going to put all these links, including your social links, your book link, your website links, all the things in the show notes, which you'll find by going to bizbookpublishinghub.com, which is where you'll also find more than 50 experts ready to help entrepreneurs become successful authors. They're there to help you navigate the complexities of writing, editing, publishing, and marketing your business book. We host private events for the Hub partners, and we also host free events for writers and authors 6 times a year. So if you go to bizbookpublishinghub.com, you will find an amazing community of experts and fellow writers and authors, as well as all the show notes from these shows. Thank you, panelists, so much for this conversation. We will see everyone next time.
Thanks, Robbie. Take care.